for joining me for day one sketch. And once again, we're using the Kaiser Craft Sparkle Collection. And all I'm doing here is I'm using my Stamp-A-Majig to really figure out my I just wanted, at first I wanted to just kind of stamp and figure out, how many I was going to have on hand. And then I decided, you know what, I'm not going to use a Stamp-A-Majig. I'm just going to go ahead and start inking these up and getting these snowflakes on because I wanted to use my rose gold heat embossing powder. So I'm just stamping. And in person, whenever you're using the Versamark, you can see the a shimmer from what you're putting down. Of course, on video, once you start adding the powder, it's better because everybody can see, what it was you were actually stamping. But if you are having trouble with seeing it, then just stamp, add your powder, stamp again, add your powder. You don't have to heat it up right away, but you can stamp and put the powder on and then continue, and then once you're done, heat it all at once. That's what I usually do. So like I was doing the two cards at one time, and once I got them both covered with their embossing powder, that's when I then got the heat tool and heated it up. And I don't know about you guys, but I love snowflakes. I like using them on my cards, and then using the embossing powder, it gives it just a little, something, a little something extra. So always heat your tool up, let it heat up so that way it doesn't take as long, for it to melt. And if you get any warping, just heat your paper from behind, and it does help put it kind of back in its right shape. All right. And we're just going to heat that up. And then you are done. So now we're going to go ahead and start putting our papers together. And I like this particular sketch because it kind of looked like a gift to me, the way they had sort of like the ribbon going down the side. So as far as our measurements and stuff, I don't have, because I've been trying to figure out with this programming how to get a picture in picture to where it would be small in the corner. That way you'd be able to see the sketch as we're going. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but hopefully I'll figure it out in the next year. But I'm just adding the mats to all the pieces that we cut out basically. And since I was doing, I think I did two cards on this one, I'm just trying to get through each step so that way, we can just put everything together. All right, so we're going to start laying down our pieces. And at first I was thinking that I would use some like foam squares or foam tape to give it some dimension, but I decided not to, just to leave it flat, because if you're not wanting to pay a whole lot of postage or you're worried about it getting squished while you're, sending it through the mail, then don't use any of the foam and just leave it one layer. It'll still be really pretty. But if you want to add dimensions, say you're handing it to someone so you don't have to worry about it going through the mail system, then I would say add dimension wherever you can, because that always gives it just a little bit of, a little more pizzazz whenever you're making, homemade cards like that. And so we're just attaching our centerpiece there. And we're going to do the same thing for our second card. And then I did mention that with this Kaiser Craft paper collection, they have were basically like washi strips, and I'm going to use that for what looked like, I guess to me, more like ribbon going down. I decided to use the washi tape. Now, if you're afraid that it's going to pull up because it isn't the stickiest, then I would suggest putting a little bit of the art glitter glue behind it. And you don't have to like smother it, just a little bit. And then I spread it around with my finger, and that just gives me a little bit of extra security. especially if I'm giving this away to somebody. And if I'm doing more than one card, since it has two of each, in the package or in the sticker book itself, then I wind up having enough to do the two cards. Okay, and then I was thinking about adding some of the ephemera snowflakes, thinking that, maybe it just needed a little something. You could add Nuvo drops. I decided to grab, there was some of the foiled circles. So, or a sticker circle that I decided to use. And I was at first putting it kind of just around randomly. And then I noticed that they would work really well in the centers of the snowflakes. So you will see me kind of move that around a little bit to put them into the centers. And then I'm just grabbing a couple of sentiments that I'm going to put on top of this black scrap of paper. And that'll create a little border for the sentiment to make it nice and finished. Sorry that most of this is happening off camera. Um, I didn't realize I was as zoomed in. I probably could have zoomed out a little bit more. I do apologize for that. But I'm just really creating my strip, trying to get this trimmed up and as even as possible. And then I just moved one of the dots over to the top section because my sentiment was a little bit bigger than I initially intended. And right there is where I'm like, oh wait, I could put this in the center of my snowflake. And it just gives it a little bit, of added, I guess, completion, almost like a flower. And then I just moved it down to the bottom where the sentiment was. We're just going to attach this one. And that is the card done. And this one I just moved over just a little bit. I wasn't at first, but then I decided, yeah, go ahead and move it. So there's our card for today. Here are the close-ups. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you guys really enjoy this series. At the beginning of all of them, I do have the sketch that we're using. So at any point in time, whenever you're watching these, you can always pause and write down the measurements, and then you can participate and go along with me, okay? So at the end here, I'm going to have links to the video that started it off, which was yesterday, and I'll also have links to videos that I've done previously. Thank you guys, and have a great day.